What exactly is style over substance? It means different things depending on who you ask, but for the sake of consistency here, let's say it refers to any artist who routinely in their career have relied heavily on some sort of gimmick or aesthetic to the point where the music they're creating starts to feel like a backseat driver. There's nothing explicitly wrong with using visuals to attract attention, so an immediate clarification: no, style over substance does not automatically make you evil, but when your image begins swallowing everything around you to the point of no return, that's the type of artist we're about to look into. Hey neighbor, welcome back to 7 on Sunday. My name is John, and I appreciate you stopping by to hear more about bands who have, at least in parts of their career, felt like style over substance. Now, what am I using as the criteria to decide who makes the cut and who doesn't? I'm pretty much taking a combination of my own opinions and pairing them with the most common criticisms I've found online and in the media, and we'll duke it out to see if they really are deserving of those scarlet letters. From the moment the 1975 blew up, you could tell how important branding and aesthetic was to how they viewed success. Each of their eras is defined by colors, patterns, boxes, irritating social media drivel, and whatever the hell frontman Matty Healy decides to throw at the wall next. The English alternative pop rockers have an easy hook because naturally people are drawn to good-looking things, whether that be the music, the dress code, the black and white routine, or the members themselves. I'm one of those people who thinks, great, you look cool, but what's behind the smoke and mirrors game? The 1975 personified that cool indie British haze for the first chunk of their career, with the quality of the music, at least on those early EPs and the first two records, matching the mysterious, jaded, poetic rock star vibe they had cooking. However, you don't have to look far to figure out why people got fed up with the band, mainly their frontman, for the antics that only ramped up with his continued drug use and drinking over time. His trollish antics consistently land them in hot water, and I've seen a lot of people slam the fact that he puts the 1975's chronically online image over everything, meaning the aesthetic, the lighting, the vibe. It has to be just right, almost as if they're writing around what might look good versus what benefits the quality of the music.
You know it's true. I love you.
Milli Vanilli were a French-German duo assembled by Frank Farian in the late 1980s. Notice how I said assembled? Yeah, the single biggest lip-syncing scandal of all time makes Ashlee Simpson look like nothing, because this is right under our noses, and it's kind of an insane, sad rabbit hole. To keep it brief, this Frank guy was basically a greedy cartoon villain producer who scouted two young musicians, Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan, built their image, signed them to a predatory record deal, only to not end up liking how their voices sounded in the studio, so he instead hires multiple other people who were not them to record all of the vocals for the Milli Vanilli project. Through no fault of their own, they unequivocally became style over substance overnight, in addition to being an overnight sensation, thanks to the carefully assembled outrageous fashion statements, the wild movements on stage, and, oh yeah, the constant lip-syncing to pre-recorded tracks that somehow fooled audiences for like a few years? Maybe it's one of those things where you just had to be there, because for me, Milli Vanilli, first-time caller, last-time listener.
It's true. Girl, you know it's 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 girl, you know it's
Girl, you know it's true. Like, how many songs have girl in the title? Milli Vanilli were always meant to be chart-topping pop boppers, a cash cow for Frank, not something with depth. The singles were lighting up the airwaves, the debut album sold 6 million plus copies, and only received intense scrutiny on the lip-syncing front after winning the Grammy Award for the Best New Artist in 1990. Wild times, but again sad times, because these were just two kids hustled into a record deal and forced to dance and lip-sync on stage with zero creative input or control. They went their separate ways after the truth about them not actually singing came out, giving back their Grammy and hanging their heads in shame as the world tried to make sense of how this all even happened in the first place.
all your faith, all your rage, all your pain ain't over now, and I ain't talking about forgiveness.
Papa, are you in there? Are you watching me as you stalk the stage from side to side, pointing directly at my soul just like you did back in 2013? If so, then hi, please don't send the nameless ghouls after me. Ghost are a Swedish rock and metal act founded and fronted by Tobias Forge. The anonymous but terrifying look they've had from the very start mimics, or rather mocks, everything from religious oligarchy to the hamminess of bands from the 70s and 80s. Is it a gimmick? Duh, even the most smooth-brained reptile could probably put that one together. But is it a good one? And the answer to that is also yes, as long as it's kept in check without stealing the entire conversation away from the music. Infestus Human and Meliora are killer examples of Ghost operating exactly the way they're meant to. Look at tracks like He Is, and you'll see the kind of campiness that they embrace perfectly while keeping their own spin, but in more recent years, many complain that they've kind of steered the ship into troubled water. Ghost are one of the biggest success stories in modern rock, and I hate to be a downer, but it's starting to feel like the classic story of artist blows up, leans too heavily into the gimmick, and then fails to recognize why the ride or dies are leaving in favor of the much more fickle mainstream fans.
I'll cross that bridge when I find it. Another day to make my stand.
Okay, pop music having a custom-built style to go hand-in-hand with the music has been around long before even Duran Duran, so let's not get it twisted. The English group just so happened to come out of the gate looking like models, so much so that, in particular, young girls all but ate them alive as they rose to fame. I look at Duran Duran as ground zero for what we now know as modern fandom culture. The new romantic movement in the UK rose alongside them as the world of intertwining fashion with music caught on and is still a huge thing today. But it's worth saying, having a good sense of style doesn't mean that you don't also have plenty of substance too. The importance of nailing the look became more vital to the fans arguably than to the band themselves, but with Simon Le Bon and the gang being sex symbols and all, they rolled with what was working and still made some sensational hits along the way that reached way beyond the idea that it was just sex selling their records. Even as they moved on from new wave and into more of a rock direction in the 90s, their fashionable image remained a lightning rod to make sure that people still knew that this was unmistakably Duran Duran. They earned a spot on this list thanks to their long-standing unspoken feud with critics regarding the style over substance jab, and as somebody who's never really been all that into them, I can't find myself gravitating to that many of their records. I did spend some time going through their catalog, and I have to say that I do think it's an unfair label, and I'm happy that they got their spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
The world will stain us with the Scallon cross.
The scene kid movement of the 2000s reigned supreme to the point of delusion, says the former wannabe scene kid, but to be fair to past me, it was never like this. Black Veil Brides are an American rock and glam metal band who have been around since the mid-2000s when MySpace and their debut album We Stitched These Wounds were the biggest things in the world. Becoming a breakout success and sustaining their following proved to be relatively easy, as the kids seemingly loved their Motley Crue cosplay so much they made them one of the few MySpace success stories to outlast the 2010s. Flashy solos, faux rebellious edge, tight leather costumes, and a tragic but seemingly relatable frontman? Of course Black Veil Brides found an audience, but I don't want to bring the hammer down and say that it's all show no talent because one, that would be a flat out lie, and two, they've shown us that they can make a pretty great song when they want to. Andy's voice and charming personality command your attention, but the lyrics and the unimaginative song structures rarely make it past the breakers, if you catch my drift. There's just a piece of the formula missing that they've never added over the years. Meanwhile, everyone's playing up the band's all-black aesthetic and focusing on how gaudy the music video can look. But if you'll forgive the comparison, My Chemical Romance and The Black Parade, Black Veil Brides are not, nor will they ever be, because the constant attention given to style took the wheel away from the music.
Break up just to make up. You're gone when I wake up.
Substance and MGK have more in common than you might think. The man literally is weed, and last I checked, that's a substance, so suck his shiny pink guitar, hater. Rapper turned rocker Machine Gun Kelly is actually the textbook example of style over substance, considering the man puts more thought into what color he's gonna dye his tongue or shocking the red carpet than actually creating music with lasting value. Our old friend Colson Baker is kinda like an Instagram model snapping photos of themselves in fancy outfits at luxurious places, following genres for the vibes, man, and living life with the rockstar filter always on. MGK surrounded himself with a band of yes men, a friend group of yes men, a bunch of producers at a label of yes men, and I think you get the point, but nobody actually told him no, you're not actually good at singing, no, posing with your guitar for branding purposes doesn't mean that you can actually shred. Much like a tumbleweed, Kelly rolls from genre to genre, desperately trying to play it cool, not realizing that most people with a pulse have started to see that his actions are really just antics meant to keep his name up in lights and headlines. Kiss are that band, and they know it. That's not even meant to be a low blow, because for this cheesy, sleazy rock and roller persona they adopted and ran with, it clearly fucking worked, as they're one of the most successful bands to ever do the damn thing. The difference with Kiss is that at least most of the time, it felt like they were in on the joke, like they knew how absurd the outfits were and all of their glam rock gusto, but they couldn't help but lean into it to the point where Gene Simmons in particular became an entirely different asshole person. But when you hold Kiss as a unit next to the idea of style over substance, they crumble. The songs have plenty of firepower, but the basic boring riffs, chant-along choruses, and limited range of diversity within their albums only hammer home the fact that this band's image is more iconic than their music. Kiss made music for people unwilling to let go of the glory days of the past, as they kept trying to recreate the magic. Not to say that they never made any catchy songs, but the older I get, the more in one ear, out the other they've become to the point of aggravation. So that final farewell tour, we'll hope so, that final farewell tour better actually be their last, because these 70-somethings getting on stage, singing and screaming about no longer even remotely risque sexual innuendos is a tough pill to swallow. What does style over substance mean to you? And what are some examples of artists that fit that mold? While you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button, it really helps me out, and subscribe if you haven't already, because we're on the road to 200K. You can check out more SOS floating below me on screen, but for now, peace.